Okay.
Excellent. All right, everybody. Hello, fellow fanatics, and welcome to the Shark is Broken fan page. And this being the celebration of the 50th of Jaws, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to talk about Jaws 2. And with great honor, we have Billy Van Zandt. Yes, look behind me. And I thought the first poster was a lot better than the skier, to be honest with you.
I did too. I did too. Yeah.
So, Billy, welcome. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for taking your time out. It's 4th of July week coming up. Thank you so much for being with us.
A pleasure. A pleasure. You're celebrating one of my favorite films. I think Jaws, Jaws and Godfather are tied for me for first place. But
Well, I have this screen, but behind me, I have back in the day we had movie insert posters, if you recall, and those would be the ones that would be outside of the door.
right, right.
And I have The Exorcist, Alien, The Omen, Saturday Night Fever, The Spy Who Loved Me, The Deep, Apocalypse Now, Scarface, and Godfather 1 and 2 right behind me
Wow. Wow.
of them. And I have a really good collection because those they stopped about in the 80s. They stopped doing like mid 80s and stopped making them. But I enjoyed them. First of all, space wise, I could get
Yeah.
two those type of posters. And I just love the look of them. I thought they were really nice, and it represented what the poster was, instead of
Yeah.
that 24 by 47 size of it.
Well, also posters nowadays to me don't even tell you what the movie's about. It's
No.
usually, the cast going like this, and you don't know what it is till you see the film.
Well,
Anyway,
the greatest one was the Grinch. It was just the hand with a Christmas ball as a
hmm,
preview. No Jim Carrey, no nothing. That was just it. Okay,
okay.
now getting to Jaws.
Yes,
You're a Jersey guy.
I am.
I'm a Brooklyn guy. You're a little older than me. I'm 58,
I'm
so I
30.
was only 8 in 1975.
Okay.
Were you able to see Jaws in 1975?
Repeatedly, repeatedly. It was, well, it was one of back then that, the lines literally went around the block to get into this movie. And I saw it, I don't know, I must have seen it 5 times when it first came out. And being from New Jersey, the interesting part, which I didn't know about at the time, the very first shark attack that got a lot of national press was in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and the guy that got eaten was named Van Zant.
Oh wow.
No relation that I can find, but it was just a little weird. I didn't know that until I was actually on Jaws 2, and somebody said, "Hey, did you know?" It's like I didn't know.
And now go 50 years later, there was just a shark attack, a tiger shark in Jones Beach.
Oh,
A girl just got bit on the ankle and the leg by a tiger shark.
well, the water's getting warmer, so there's a lot more of
Well, they're
them.
saying they're going after the fish that's out there itself, so became a feeding ground,
Yeah,
and we just so happen to be in there, and then boom, it's snack time.
yeah, really, really.
Did you read the paperback before you saw the movie?
No, no.
See, I was young enough that everybody in my block had the paperback,
I
so
read I read it afterwards, and it was
mind blowing, wasn't it?
different.
Yeah, it was completely different, and even like the ending. So like even when I went back when they did like the anniversary edition, I reread it again and forgot the whole thing about the mob, and I remembered the thing with the affair. But the killer part for me was that they went back to Amity every night. It made
Yeah,
it like a few days that they went out and tried to kill the shark. Which was like, in a sense, you would think Quint was crazy enough to be like, no, 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 I'm not going to let anybody else have a chance
right.
to get this prize, especially you wanted 10 grand at the time. And the whole thing with the barrels too. There was nothing with the barrels I don't think in the book either. So you would
No,
have been seeing the yellow barrel walking around. Any fisherman could have grabbed them then too.
Carl Gottlieb did a fantastic job rewriting that for the screen. He just did, and I always I give him so much credit because for our film, as I'm sure all your fans know, um, he was rewriting the script as we shot it. So he would write the scene on, that night. The next day we'd be on the set filming it. So what he pulled off, I always say, people don't care what went into making a film. They just want to see a good film. But if you knew what Janos Swark and Carl Gottlieb stepped into when they did our thing. Um, they did a miraculous job, you know.
So
And
now you were one of the first cast members as the kids, right? You were in the Hancock version.
yes, yes,
And how did that get on your radar to go down and audition for it?
that was just another audition for me. In fact, it was my another audition. I had an agent, and I was going out for a lot of theater stuff, and it was my very first movie audition. And I went to I think it was the Hilton in New York, and we did auditions there. Shirley Rich, fantastic casting lady, very famous for her work in New York. She cast the film. She made everybody feel very comfortable. Didn't care that it was your first film or your 500th film. Um, and John Hancock was fantastic. So he cast me, David Elliott, who played the mayor's son, Keith Gordon, who played Doug, Ann Dusenberry, who was under contract to Universal, um, somebody else.
Well, little Ricky
No,
Schroeder.
he wasn't.
Not
Oh,
yet, yet.
Ricky Schroeder. Ricky Schroeder was cast in
Yeah.
the one. And then we went to work with John up in Martha's Vineyard, and which you were just at, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you go to the Harborside Inn at all? That's where we all stayed.
The Harbor View.
That was called.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think I went to the Harbor View. I don't, and I
it
stayed at
was
the. I know they did a lot of stayed at that hotel for Jaws itself. The
oh,
cast and crew.
yeah, this was in Edgartown, and where we stayed, and we had 4 weeks of rehearsing and getting tan, which was bizarre, and that was like our job, and learning to sail because a lot of us had never sailed. And then we did 1 week worth of shooting with John, and all of a sudden everything shut down, and we didn't know why. We were just told to go home, and they'd call us back, and we were going to film, later. So I went home. Um, I don't know how many weeks went by, and I got a phone call saying to show up in Pensacola, Florida to shoot, to continue shooting the movie. I got down there, and I had a new director. I had Carl Gottlieb rewriting the script. I had a whole new cast of people. They changed the character that I was playing. I was originally, they had me called Sideburns, and they had me grow long sideburns. And when I came back, the sideburns were gone, and now I was Bob Burnsides, and they called
Very
me.
original.
Yeah, they called me Bob in the first movie with John Hancock, which was very dark, and it still I think would make a great film.
Do you
Um,
have the script? Did you read that script, original script?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It was you were coming back to Amity, and it was a ghost town. Everything was boarded up, and which makes some of what happened in our film make a little more sense when you realize how desperate the mayor is to try and get that hotel working and sell all the condos and all that stuff. That part was gone. Suddenly, it was very bright colors and PG sort of stuff. And I was say, oh, Gary Springer, that was the other one who was cast in the original. And Gary and David and I had great roles in the first version. Gary was sort of like co-starring with Roy. He helped save everybody at the end. David Elliott and I were the villains in the movie.
Hmm.
David as Larry Jr., holding Sean over the water and calling him shark bait and teasing him. And we get a ticket for riding our bikes on the ferry or on a sidewalk or something. And David rips it up in front of Roy because he's the mayor's son. He knows he can get away with everything. And then as a group, we all get stuck together and everything comes together, and it sort of made a little more sense. Um, but suddenly in Florida, I was I was I was Bob, and we had we weren't villains anymore. We're all friends. Everybody was friends to begin with, and they called me Bob because the in the first version I had a gruesome death, which was fantastic.
Which
Uh,
always gets talked about.
they should talk about it because I want that footage. I want to find that footage. Um, and because they filmed it with a stuntman. I saw the dailies. I said, "Why'd you use a stuntman? He doesn't look like me. He looks 10 years older than I do." And David Brown said, "Well, it's okay." Well, I said, "No, no, shoot it again with me." And he said, "You okay, but it has to be the last thing we shoot when we're in Florida." And I said, "Why does it have to be the last thing you shoot?" He said, "In case you die." So they did.
Those hydraulics, you never know.
Well, looking back, it was the stupidest thing I could have done because you had the shark on the hydraulics and me on the pontoon of the sailboat and ropes around my waist and divers under the water. And as the shark crashed down on top of me, they yanked me under the water and out of the way. I don't know why they allowed me to do that. I don't know why I allowed me to do that, but so that's what could have been. And I just recently, I know Joe Alves was on Martha's Vineyard, and I've asked him to see if he can find. I never thought about doing this. Can you find the storyboards that you
Mm,
made for that scene? Because nobody can find the footage, and they keep using that photo of me on the pontoon with the shark in front of me. Netflix used it to, Jaws 2 is coming, and they had that picture. It's not in the
right.
movie. And I just saw it on New York Times did an article. Again, my picture, not in the movie, but so and Michael Smith, who wrote the Jaws 2, the book.
Well, I just was going to reference it, and it is.
Oh,
Let's see if I can get it. There you go.
yeah,
Uh, you were supposed to be several different ways. You're supposed to get eaten in half,
uh-huh.
and Roy was supposed to pull you up, and you like that was Bob, and you
As if he
only
was going
get
to come up. So
half of your body.
I bobbed in the water, which is why
Right,
Carl called me Bob. It's little joke for us.
right, and
And
then your legs were supposed to get only taken away.
they made a cast of they made casts of my legs, and they were supposed to be chomped. So it went from here to suddenly just my knees down, I guess, and then finally I died the same way Marge did in our film, where we just sort of disappear with under the water.
Well, I tell you, which is still one of the greatest scenes. I mean, you're really seeing nothing, but just the shark of the back coming up towards her and then her just disappearing. It really still is breathtaking. It
And
still works.
and her innocence, right, trying to get out of the
Trying to
water,
yeah, slipping and trying to get up.
was great.
Great, great. Now, before this, uh, originally you were supposed to be Quint's son,
That's
right?
that's what they
If
told me.
okay, so that's
I don't know that that's in the script or if it was planning to be in the script or what, but they told me that I had my entrance scene was on the Chappaquiddick ferry.
right.
I don't think we filmed this though, and I was supposed to be whistling the
Farewell and adieu.
yes, and I think that was supposed to tell people I was his son or something, but that went away. That just went away.
Right, right, right. So that
The
was
only
one of the things, legends of what's going on with this film as it was too.
Yeah, the only part of there are two parts in our film that were shot by John Hancock that stayed in, and it's one of my favorite shots in the movie is the beginning when we're inside the Holiday Inn and you see the harbor and you just see the fin come up and go down, and that's John Hancock, and it sort of showed you how dark
Yes,
our film was gonna be. And the other one was the spinnaker flying
the parachute in the water.
and the shark doesn't come out there, but
Right.
he
It's
was going
like
to.
underneath, like it looks like it's ready to go get the guy, and then
Yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't happen.
As far as I know, those are the only two remains of the John Hancock version. But it would have been a good film. Why he got fired, I still don't know. I've read several things that who knows? Who knows?
Well, I
Uh,
heard. Well, again, I'm just reading. You would know more than anything. Is that I guess he wasn't getting along with Roy, and then they had a problem with his wife writing the screenplay. There was a lot of
yeah, yeah.
people getting rubbed the wrong way somehow, and
Well,
it really was only 1 week, and he only lasted a week.
well, 4 weeks of rehearsing.
Oh,
He was,
and then but principal shooting was only 1 week.
yeah, yeah.
Wow,
And but Roy, to be fair, Roy didn't get along with either of our directors.
which I heard, yeah, which I read also.
He did not want to be there, and I sort of understand. He was there because he had to be contractually, and he was running this one by himself. They kept trying to get Richard Dreyfuss to come in, but I don't know why he said eventually said no. I think, with reason he said no. Um, but Roy didn't want to be there, and I know that because he brought it up a lot. He missed doing the movie Deer Hunter because he had to do our film, and that's one he
Oh.
had to do. But if I remember correctly, they tried to. I think they bought him a Jaguar and brought it there. I mean, they were just trying their best to try
Well,
and make.
Universal also took he was contracted, I think, for 3 movies, and they took one movie away. So
Uh-huh.
he only had to do one more for them too. So that was part of the package deal.
But he was miserable the entire time. He didn't talk to anybody. He would he would
Suntan,
he would suntan. He had that
the
whatever that's
visor.
called, that tray, and he'd strip between takes. He would strip out of his clothes down to his speedo bathing suit and lay on a chair with a thing. And then when it came time to shoot, we'd have to wait for him to get dressed again. And um, he was a different person. Keith Gordon ended up working with him again on All That Jazz,
Mm.
where he played Roy as a kid in that movie. He said he was a completely different guy, fun guy, loved the guy. Gary Springer, who played Andy in ours, became and is a world-renowned PR person now. Um, and he worked with Roy at a bunch of film festivals in New York, and they got to be friendly. He said, great guy, loved him, whole different guy.
They just added that element. That's what it was.
Yeah, yeah. And I know he had a big blow up. One of the first things we shot was the Holiday Inn scene, and another scene of mine got cut. But I had a good entrance too. Uh, and on that set, in front of all those extras, Roy threw a fit, and I think, based on nothing except gut instinct, I think it was to test our new director to see what he can get away with.
Mm.
And Jeannot put him in his place really fast in front of the crew. And I thought, okay, he passed the test, you know.
Right, right.
So, uh, but other than that, I mean, we did not get along with Roy. We didn't, nobody, he didn't talk to anybody, you know.
So now
Um,
you get down to Florida, and now you have a whole new cast. Now Mark Bruners, Mike,
mhm.
and was Tom Dunlop already, or was he
Oh yeah,
recast?
he was cast. He was a local from Martha's Vineyard, where he still lives. Did you see him? Was he involved?
I missed him. He was there though. I saw photos.
Okay. Yeah, he came down. He was underage, and Keith Gordon was underage, so they were emancipated and came down. Um, so I palled around with the two of them a lot, and uh, yeah, Tom was from the original cast too.
And they said basically on your off time they would just send you out sailing
Yeah,
to get used to it like you've been doing it all your lives.
yeah.
And you had pretty much a camp itself, and you had an older person, older lady that was it you and Mark that almost drowned someone or left her on a reporter.
That I don't know
There's
about.
a story. There's a story that a reporter went out with two guys. It might have been with Mark, and she fell overboard,
Oh,
and they they left her basically, and they thought, oh my god, she's dead, and they came back and like they went back to wherever you guys were hanging out, and she came up and just ripped them, a
wow.
new one that they
Wow. I don't know that. I don't know that. I know we lost David and I used to. David like to, on our off time, we would speedboat speed the sailboat around, and we flipped the boat several times, and which would have been fine except for the fact that we all had very expensive walkie-talkies so we could talk to the
uh,
director, and we lost a lot of them, so they weren't happy with us. But yeah, there were days we I forget where they had us sail, but we were way out. Like you couldn't see land anywhere, way out.
yeah.
And I think that was the time there were hammerhead sharks going around the boats. And
Actual.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
There were a lot of sharks when as we were filming, there were sharks everywhere because the locals didn't want us there. They hated us. So at the end, we had a pier, our own pier that they built for our production, out the back of the Holiday Inn where we were staying. There was nothing else. It was Navarre Beach, and I'm literally there was nothing around us. You couldn't walk to a store, you couldn't walk to another hotel, just beach. That was it. Since then, it's a whole new thing. But back then, there was nothing there. But there was another pier, maybe, I don't know, 200, 300 yards away, and that was a fishing pier. And the local fishermen, did not want us there, so they advertised a shark rodeo, which was their thing for chumming the water, and whoever catches the biggest shark is the winner. So
Mm.
they did that on purpose to scare us off.
Right, right.
And we were all stupid teenagers, and we said, "What are we gonna do? There's sharks." And our production team said, "Oh, don't worry about it. We have divers who have dart guns, and they'll be in the water whenever you have to go in the water. And so don't worry about it." We went, "Oh, okay," and we jump in the water. Um, so we never had any we never had any incident. But looking back, that was also another stupid thing. They had us because we were teenagers, and a lot of us it was our first movie. We did we did a lot of we did our own stunts. Aside from that one thing where the guy played me and we reshot it, I don't think we had any stunt people on that movie. Teddy Grossman, he was in charge of
So
it.
the
So
collisions of the sailboats and everything, that's all you guys on them at the time then, right?
yeah, it was like, okay, sail your boat into that boat. Oh, okay, bam, and we didn't know.
Right.
And then I know at the helicopter scene where the shark eats the helicopter, um, they we get on our pontoons and they throw they throw the helicopter blades at us. So uh, yeah,
Were
we
you on location to watch that scene happen itself, or did you just do that's it explosions and they would throw the blades and everything, or were you able to watch that scene itself happen when the shark
we
attacked
were all
the?
there. We were all there for that.
Okay,
Yeah. There was a big barge that would be our camp out in the water, and we would all between takes, we'd get on
we just
that.
hang out on there.
Yeah, where we all perfected the game of backgammon.
Mm.
I think every single one of us can beat anybody in backgammon because we played it for 11 months basically. Um, and the fun part for me was when we were on that big barge. Verna Fields was there, and got to talk to her and get friendly with her and the crew. I mean, you didn't associate with the crew when you were shooting because we were way out in the water, you know. But we had a great crew of people. Everybody was great.
Now take me. So now you guys are in the sailboat. How is it situated? Is cameras around you? Is there like a couple of boats itself that is shooting you guys with the sailboats? And is there the barge with the shark on the side? Like say the time of Mark when the shark is coming and opens his mouth and almost gets him.
Okay, we weren't there for that, but that was a happy accident, which almost killed him. By the way, really, literally, almost killed him. The shark was supposed to come near the boat, and they were going to pull him out of the
Not
water.
alongside it as close as it was.
No, it was not
Mm.
as close as it was because that thing smashed into the boat and just missed taking him out. So that's really them yanking him to safety. Um, and you can see the hydraulics in the
Yeah, in
shark's,
the mouth. Yeah.
but this was before we could see it on our TV and pause it.
And now I think the 4K version they actually digitally erased it.
Oh, did they? I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. But well, the cameras were usually on. Yeah, think about this now. The cameras were on the barge, and we would be out in the water, and then they. Yeah, there was no. I don't remember anybody being on a little boat next to us.
And they would have like the shark sled also. They would have a cameraman on the shark sled too for certain
Yeah,
scenes, right? As a POV
yeah,
of
you're
it
right.
coming towards you
There-
guys.
There's some photos of it where you can see them on
Yeah.
the thing. Yeah, we had the hydraulic shark, we had the fin only, we had the top of the shark only.
Janelle called one the luxurious shark
Okay,
you
the,
had.
that's the full one. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
those were all pulled by boats, except for the hydraulic one that almost killed me. That was like a roller coaster under the water.
Well, the
Uh,
kid, well, Jeffrey Voorhees also said the same thing when he was doing his death scene. He did it a few times, and it literally took 5 days to shoot that scene.
do they have footage of that?
Not much, but there's some you see the blood cannons
Oh,
shooting
okay.
up on him. But the last day, the same thing. They had divers because he said it was literally about 4 feet or 5 feet of water they were in, so
Oh,
he could come up. And Spielberg was like, your arm went the wrong way. Oh, your shoulder went this way. And he said the kid's friends were getting paid $25 a day, and since he was in SAG, he was getting $100 a day. And he would go, they would put him in the warm tent, and it was like May or something like that, so everybody's freezing in the water. And then it literally took, they said, 5 to 6 hours they had to wait for the blood to clear out
oh,
of the water to do the scene again, or they would have to just go. They realized on the second day that it took too long. They would do it the next day. So on the fifth day, they got the divers to pick him up and put him down and pick him up. And the same thing, he said, yeah, like, I'm practically, they did a Chrissy with me, like they're pushing me this way, bringing me up that way. And after it was done, he's like, do we have to do this again? And Spielberg, nope, we got it. And he's like, oh, thank God.
wow. Wow. I know that when Gary Dubin, Eddie, dies in our movie, that's pure panic you see on his face, and it's not good acting. What it is he couldn't swim,
Oh,
and to get our job, you had to, well, tell them you swam, right?
right. You ride horses, you do motorbike, whatever to get the gig.
Any young actor can do anything until they're cast, and then they have to figure out how they do it. Uh, so they, because when we first got down to Florida, I guess they found out under the John Hancock regime that some people couldn't swim, so those people got fired.
Mm,
Um, so then we get down to Florida, and we were told to go out into the water, and we had to tread water for 5 minutes. And if you couldn't tread water for 5 minutes, you were going to get fired, right? So we're all out there in the water, bobbing up and down a little bit. And what they didn't realize is we could all touch the bottom where we were.
um,
We were just faking it. We were just faking it.
so your knees are bent a little and you're doing
Yeah,
the wade.
I could swim, so that wasn't my problem. But Gary Dubin could not swim. So it comes time for the big scene, and he has to get in the water and be dragged through the water and smash into the boat. Oh, there were stunt people for that. Okay, and he couldn't swim. So as they're pulling him, he's drowning himself, and so you see his pure panic on his face. That's real. That's the real footage.
Wow,
Yeah,
crazy. And you surviving, I read in the book also that you're not really in the last shot.
I'm not. I'm not because I'm
What
dead.
what happened? You didn't swim. It seems like you didn't swim towards the rocks like everybody else.
I must have swum around the back because the intention was for me to die, right? And I remember Verna Fields explained to me. She said the fight is that there are a certain number of deaths which will constitute an R rating, and the ratings board was fighting them. And she had said to them, "Well, how come you can kill, like in a John Wayne movie, war movie, you can kill an entire town, and it's still a PG movie?" And the answer from the ratings board was, "We don't know those people, so it's okay to kill them."
Oh, you're not personal to the
Right.
audience in that sense.
Right. So, but in ours, you knew all the people, and one death, my death would have made it an R-rated movie, which is what they were fighting
Um,
against from the beginning. So they had me. It's after Christmas, so in January they flew me out to Long Beach, California, outside the Queen Mary, outside a cat food cannery in polluted waters to swim up on rocks, and they just had me ad lib. So I just did thank you, thank you, thank you. And I didn't know whether they were going to use that or my death until I saw the movie in the theater.
wow.
And the sad part for me is, first of all, it was great to have done it. I wanted to see it. I think the movie needed it at the end, whether it was me or somebody else. I think it needed one final scary,
Death.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, and poor Donna Wilkes been given a hard time for screaming her head off all these years. She's screaming because she's watching me get killed 5 feet away from her, but you don't see that part. You just see her screaming. I mean, there are parts she screams
Right,
other.
just like it's just like she's just panicking. It just looks like
Yeah.
she's flipping out.
And then David Elliott freaks out on the he's already on the shore freaking out that I'm watching me get killed, and Gary Springer's tackling him. It was really exciting stuff. All of it's gone. And we I started to say Michael searched for the footage of not just my death, but that whole sequence. Couldn't find it, and he thinks that there was a when there was a fire at Universal in the I don't know 80s or 90s that got destroyed in that.
Oh.
But I'm still determined it's out there somewhere, and I hope somebody finds it. But in the meantime, I want Joe Alves to find if he's got the storyboard, so I can at least see what it was supposed to look like all put together.
Right, right. Yeah, he just released a storyboard on his website, but it was one of the sailboat scenes itself. It wasn't too gruesome. Yeah, and but he's definitely has them because like I said, he just released it last year. He just put it out on his website from the cell.
When he does the conventions, he's usually selling autographed storyboards. I know he's got a ton of stuff, and he's got a ton of movies, and he's a incredibly talented guy. You know,
Oh, I
uh,
mean, Escape from New York, Close Encounters. I mean, the list goes on and on with him. It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
and he's brilliant. He's just brilliant.
So now it's over. You come home. Now the
Mhm.
premiere. Where is the premiere for you to see it?
I didn't go to the premiere. I
No
had
kidding.
I went right back into the theater, and I had a play I was in, and I couldn't go. So I never got to see it for the first time that way. The
Oh,
first time I saw it was in my hometown movie theater, probably the next day, something like that. And this was funny to me. There was a they put my name on the marquee, and it was very cute, nice. And so I show up at the theater, and this lady comes up to me, and she said, "Oh, you're in Jaws too." I said, "Yeah. Would you sign this for my son?" I said, "Yeah, sure. Sign an autograph." "Would you sign one for my daughter?" I said, "Yeah, I'd be happy to." "Oh, my neighbors are gonna want one too. Would you sign?" So I'm signing like 10 different things for this one. I said, "Did you see the movie?" And she said, "No, no, we're going to see Grease because John Travolta is better than you."
no.
That was my introduction to celebrityhood.
Oh my God, it's hilarious. So did the whole family go with the premiere? I mean, like when you're showing in Jersey?
Trying to think. No, oh, yes, but I went to I forgot this. I didn't that wasn't that night. It was because I went back a couple of times. Um, I went to see it in Long Branch. Howard Grant owned a bunch of Grant theaters throughout New Jersey, and he held a private screening for us. Um, so my whole family was there. And I remember my grandmother running down the aisle in the middle of the movie to make sure I was okay after I fell off the boat. It was cute. Uh, but yeah, it was pretty awesome to see it for the first time.
Could you could you tell the story? Because I just read in the book about, thank God it's not true, about you hearing someone passing away with your last name.
Yeah, yeah. This was a horrifying moment. It was we were getting in the van to go to the harbor where we were going to film those little harbor introductory scenes. In the night before, in the middle of the night, people are pounding on my door, and I thought it was a prank because there were a lot of those going around. So I just ignored it, went to bed. Um, so my brother, who plays with Bruce Springsteen, among other things, was out on tour, and this is before we had cell phones and the internet. And so I get on the van, and one of the assistant directors says, "Are you related to the musician Van Zandt who died in a plane crash last night?" And I flipped out. So I got off the thing and I tried to calling my parents, innocently. Hey, have you talked to Steven? Couldn't get through to anybody. And I was flipped out. It took me about 2 hours to find the news that Leonard Skinner's band had crashed, and that's who had passed away. Another Van Zandt, no relation, but that was horrifying. And that weekend, my brother came home from the tour, and he went to visit my parents, and in their living room are flowers all over the place that their friends had sent them thinking Stephen had died.
Jeez.
And he looked at one, and he went, this little arrangement. That's all they thought of me. Yeah. But since then, in a bizarre thing, Stevie Ray Vaughan dies. My brothers, my parents would get flowers. There were three other people with similar sounding name musicians, and then every time somebody died, my brother's getting funeral arrangements. It's horrifying. It was horrible.
When he got into The Sopranos, were you shocked how good? I mean, because honestly, he was really good as Silvio.
Yes, he was. He was.
Just nailed it. I mean, because you know what? It felt natural. It didn't feel like he was acting. It felt like, all right, we're bringing this guy in, and this is the scenes he's got to do, and this is what it was amazing how.
Well, in a large way, his, not exactly, but his relationship with Bruce is a lot like his relationship, Silvio's relationship with Tony Soprano.
Yeah, with Gandolfini, right, right,
Right hand man that you've been friends with forever, who can tell you the truth when other people can't. So he had been playing that role in real life.
true.
Um, but I when I was in when he was in high school, he doesn't talk about this, but he was in a couple of school plays, and it was hilariously funny. So he was always performing. Um, I mean, not to that degree, but he always had it in him. And Lilyhammer, he did a great job on
Great
Lilyhammer.
job.
So yeah, I'm sure he'll be doing more.
And now he's out again on the road. I
Yes, as of
I
last night, he finally got back on stage after having appendicitis.
oh, did he?
Yes, I don't know how smart that was, but he played because they don't do an hour-long show. They do, three.
I know. I know. I saw them 4 or 5 times the last go around here.
Oh,
I got to see him. Yeah, I'm a fan. Yeah, I enjoy. I love the music, and I
yeah.
just love the energy. And you love, Sam. You love the brotherhood on there, and it's just gleeful and fun. It's a lot. It's great, and I just love when he comes on with that big giant hat on, and he
I
does
hate that hat. I hate that hat. I hate the hat and the coat. Just come out, but that's his thing.
And then the whole interaction with him during Rosalita and Bruce is hilarious, where they
Yeah,
make all the faces and stuff. It's still very funny.
yeah, I
So
agree.
now, getting past that, I know you did producing. I want to ask you a few other questions.
Yeah,
I know you worked with Lucille Ball,
yes, I did.
and tyrant or a good woman or just completely professional.
She is the reason I wanted to go into show business. I wanted to do the kind of comedy she did. Her show was very influential to me. The writing, it taught me how to write sitcoms and structure them and all that. Desi Arnaz and Jess Oppenheimer sort of taught me how to produce. Um, and I learned timing from Lucy and all of them. I finally, Ann Dusenberry played her daughter in Lucy's final show, Life with Lucy. And she called me up as soon as she got the job. And she said, "You were the second call. I had to call my mother first, but I knew I had to call you." I was like, "Okay." So I flew out and watched her work, and I got to meet her, and eventually I got to be on the show and stuff. Um,
Now that was the one with the hardware store,
yeah, yeah,
and Gail Gordon.
Gordon,
Ah,
and
what a treasure Gail Gordon was.
they say never meet your idols, and I would say I could not have been happier with how I met my idol. She was everything I wanted her to be, and she was very professional, very professional. She worked like a dog, I thought, and and Gail Gordon was fantastic too.
And
One of
what
my
were they mid 60s? Was she like in the mid 60s by then, or
70,
maybe 70s?
yeah,
That was her last go at it, right?
yeah. It was not the right vehicle for her. But and but she wanted to work, and she worked very hard, and the audience in the soundstage went berserk every time she came out. So it was funny. At one point, she did something in rehearsal, and I laughed, and she said, "Was that funny?" I said, "Yeah, why?" She said, "I haven't known what's funny since 1960 because everybody laughs at everything."
Everything.
I felt, oh God,
Yeah.
um,
I saw the ones when John Ritter came on and did the whole thing with the ladder.
that was the first. I think that was the first one they aired. Yeah, yeah. I got to go to her house for that episode when that aired. That she invited me, and she invited Ann and me. Um, and John was there, and Gail Gordon was there. It was a really fun night for me. Um, and I realized I was everybody's sitting around watching the show air, and I'm sitting on the floor like I was back at my parents' house as a kid, watching TV. And I realized about 5 minutes into the show, I realized Lucy's behind me, watching me watch her. It was a very surreal
Very
moment,
Twilight Zone.
very very surreal moment. But she was great. She was terrific.
And I say, and you were a producer on Martin also?
Yeah, the first season of Martin, I helped develop the show, and I created the characters that Garrett Morris played, and John Grise played, and a lot of the characters that Martin ended up playing were Otis the
Uh,
security guard and the little snot-nosed Roscoe kid, a bunch of different characters.
That Roscoe was awesome. That was a great part.
Yeah, that was an interesting time. I write about that and a bunch of other TV shows. I did, I don't know, maybe 30 years in TV. And my one of my books, Get in the Car, Jane, is all about the different TV shows that we either created or produced or wrote, and got the number one on Amazon for a second and a half, but that still counted.
The Bless This House, did was there trepidation or caution to cast dice for that?
No, I had worked with, there was a show starring Ralph Macchio that never got on the air. We did 6 episodes of that. And Andrew was going through a career slump at the time based on his act, basically, because
Right.
women wanted to be around him because of his act. But so he came onto that show as Ralph's cousin. Um, and he dropped the word dice out of his name, and he was just Andrew Clay on that show. And but he was playing this outrageous character with the same timing because he's hilariously funny, and he was so good on that they gave him Bless This House. So having worked on the other show, I thought this is going to be fantastic. And then we got to the show, and he was hilariously funny, and the chemistry with Kathy Moriarty and him was great. You would think they were a regular blue collar couple. They were terrific. But every Thursday he would cause problems on the set while we're doing camera blocking, and it would be very weird stuff. And I get called down to the set all the time on Thursday. Andrew's doing this. Andrew's doing. And then one week we had the theater legend Elaine Stritch on the show as Kathy's,
Hmm.
and I loved her, and I was told not to use her, and I said, "Screw it, she's Elaine Stritch." Well, she was tough. She was really tough to work with, and best show we did, by the way. And all of a sudden, I'm called down to the set because she's complaining about something, and I go down there, and I notice Andrew is quietly sitting in the corner. He knew all his lines, which he never knew them on Thursday. And I went up to him and said, "What's the deal?" I said, "Every Thursday you cause a problem. You don't know your lines. You cause all these different excuses. This week, you're a professional. You're on time. You know your lines. What's the story?" And he pointed to Elaine Stritch. He said, "There's only room for one." So I was like, okay.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, he had respect. He knew what the deal was.
yeah, but she was. It was okay for her to be the prima donna for the week, not him.
Now
Uh,
back in the day too, it was a lot of shows was slated for like at least 20 to 22 episodes, right?
when I started, well, I Love Lucy before my time because I got friendly with Bob and Madeline who wrote it. They did 39 episodes a year with no writing staff, just the two of them.
Oh my.
And they would work from, as she said, 9 in the morning till 5 o'clock, and then we go home. I said, "You didn't stay for dinner like modern shows?" And she said, "No, if you couldn't do the job by 5 o'clock, you shouldn't be doing it." It's like, oh, so I sort of took that in when Jane Milmore and I started doing our own shows. I started working well in that way. I didn't any nothing ever wrote at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning was funny enough to keep. It was
Right.
just a different
You're
line.
like punch drunk by then.
Yeah, but by the time I got on the scene of writing, because we started doing plays first, but once we started in TV, 22 episodes would be the order for the year. And then it segued into you get 13 episodes, and then there would be a pickup for 9 more episodes. Um, and now because of Netflix and all that, you're lucky if you get 8 or 10.
You're lucky you get right. Ten is like
Yeah.
pushing it nowadays.
Which is great for people like me who've already been through all that stuff
Right.
and don't have to depend on it for a salary. Because if you do 8 episodes, that's not enough to pay your bills for the year.
Right.
Um,
Do you think
and
it's for with the audience, it's more short attention span with the audience now that they can't handle like me and my wife now watching the Blacklist, right?
mhm,
And 10 seasons, the from 19 to 22 episodes a season.
yeah, yeah.
And that's just recent we're talking, which is which it's like every time we we're at season 5 now. I'm like, Jesus Christ, there's 5 more seasons. What else is gonna happen,
One of the reasons for that was because once you got to about 100 episodes, you could syndicate the shows,
Right.
have you crank them out, but now it's eight episodes, 10 episodes, and you're lucky if you get that. Um,
And a lot
and
of times they're pretty solid, like I just did you see The Night Agent?
yeah, I loved it.
We
Yeah,
just phenomenal,
yeah,
phenomenal. It's and it was it to the point that I'm a guy that I like to breathe it. I don't hate I hate binging,
uh-huh.
especially if it's really really good. I want to savor it and enjoy it the next day or whatever,
Yeah,
and we got to a point like we especially like with Breaking Bad. We went away on vacation. We watched the whole season that week. It was like next one, yes, because we couldn't wait to see what happened because it always gave you that little cliffhanger
yeah,
moment that towards the end of the episode.
yeah,
It's just amazing. Some of the writing nowadays is just really on the ball.
yeah. And I will say the good part for the audiences is those 8 to 10 episode seasons. The quality is better because you've got people who can just, you don't, when you do a 22, 29, whatever that episode thing is, by the end of that season, you're exhausted because you're
Right,
getting from the network and the studio and so you'll notice on a lot of shows, sitcoms mostly, if there are any left, um, the episodes towards the end of the season, you'll see they're written by like 500 people because they're in the
right.
writers in the room making it up the
The
week
guy
before.
wrote a sentence. Okay, give him credit. Yeah, guy wrote a paragraph for a scene.
Gotta
All
shoot
right, give him a
next week.
credit.
Gotta finish. You take that scene. You take this scene. So that's why that stuff gets little crap. Some crappy episodes on sitcoms, but it's mostly because the writers ran out of ideas and they got tired. But on the 8 to 10 episode shows, every episode's good because you can take your time and do it right.
Like you worked on Maisel, right?
Yeah, that was one episode of Mrs. Maisel, and you really have to search for me in it. The
But
I
the
did it.
structure of working with the Paladinos must be, to see how they work a show must be something else too.
It was typical of what I was used to, but the funny part is when I did my Don Rickles show. I tried to hire Dan Palladino as a writer because, I saw his work and he was terrific. And he wasn't on the approved list from the network, and I couldn't use him. They wouldn't let me use him. And when I went on to Maisel, he didn't remember me at all, and he had no idea what I was talking about. But I said, when I did one of my shows, you were I couldn't get you approved, but I'm glad to see things worked out for you. And he didn't know what the hell I was talking about. But they did an episode where they had me play Groucho Marx.
Right.
I had done a play that we wrote called A Night at the Nutcracker, and I played the Groucho character, and they saw footage of that, I guess, and brought me in for that. And by the time it by the time it aired, you would swear you were watching footage of an old TV show with Groucho and the host, because they didn't do any big close-ups, so I didn't know that sort of thing. So I was on the TV that Maisel and her manager were watching. But it was fun. It really was fun. And when I first got there, I thought, I don't know if I should be doing this, because whenever I see somebody play an iconic person on a TV show or in the movies, it's always bad,
Mm.
and I don't want to be that, 'cause I did a pretty good Groucho, and and I get there and I couldn't find the dressing room, and I found the production assistant girl, and I said, I'm here. Can you show me where the thing? And she said, oh yes. Who are you? And I said, Billy Van Zandt. I'm playing Groucho Marx. She gets on the phone and she said, hi, the man playing the Grouch is here. And I thought, well, maybe it doesn't matter that I'm playing Groucho, because nobody under 30 knows who he is.
Very sad.
Yeah,
Very sad.
yeah. But it was a great set. It was a great set, and it was really fun. It was fun to do.
Can you talk about Rickles?
Yeah, happy to. I
Now,
most
the same thing. Was he always on?
No, but he was always on when he knew there was an audience.
Okay.
So in rehearsals, when you had the crew around, you could barely get him to rehearse properly because he was insulting the cameraman, and when we had there were some rehearsals we had where, in most sound stages, when you're rehearsing a sitcom, nobody's in the bleachers until shoot night. It's just people working. But on our set, because it was Don, people from all over the studio would come to sit in the bleachers and watch our rehearsals in the hopes that he would insult them, which he did. And it was fun to watch. You'd see people go, oh, he got me, he got me. But when we were alone, he was quiet, nice guy, and his wife was lovely, Barbara.
Barbara, yeah.
And we went out to dinner one night, and it was Jane and my partner and me and Frank Pace, our producer, and his wife Karen, and Don and Barbara. So we're in this nice restaurant, and Don would insult the waiter just when he come over, but then he would go back to being a regular person. So as we're leaving the restaurant, Warren Beatty and Gary Shandling were walking in, and Don stopped, and he must have done 20 minutes of insulting the two of them repeatedly, and the guys were crying. They were laughing so hard. And we walk outside, and Don turned to me and said, did I do okay? I thought, he still doesn't he doesn't know how good he
That's
is.
sure, right, right. The stuff he used to do with Sinatra
Yeah,
on the Tonight Show.
we got him on our show. He got Sinatra on our show.
Oh, wow.
Last sitcom that Mr. Sinatra did, and it was hilarious because he said he would do the show, but only if he felt like it on a day when he woke up, pretty much. So he had a little tag scene. It was like 3 lines or something. And so we kept the setup, and we kept waiting for him to say, yes, this will be the day. And so we kept getting phone calls. He's going to do the show today. And so we got all the extras onto the set, and we set it all up. Um, um, he's eating breakfast. I said, he's eating breakfast. He's in the shower. He's in the shower. He's on his way. All right, everybody get ready. Here he comes. So we started the cameras rolling from the second he got out of the car, We had his lines on cue cards. He walked in, said, "So what am I doing?" And they, the director Howard Storm showed him where he was standing and all that stuff. And he did two takes, cameras rolling the whole time, and then he left. And as he got back in his car, he went, "It was only 3 minutes long. We got to get into this TV business." And he drove away. And the sad part was my writing partner Jane ran into the ladies' room to fix her makeup so she looked good for him, and she ran onto the soundstage as his car pulled away.
Oh, so she missed out.
Where is he? I said he's probably eating lunch by now back at his house.
Did you
But
get a photo with you, Rickles, and him?
he wouldn't take picture. We
No kidding.
got a picture of Don and Richard and him pretty much as he was walking towards his car. And the funny part for me was Richard Lewis that morning gave me a list of about 30 different photos he wanted taken with Sinatra. There's one where we should both be having coats over our shoulders and we should both have fedoras and we should. Well, he's
Oh,
lucky
he
he got
wanted
the
to do a photo shoot.
yeah, he's lucky he got the one shot he got as he was leaving.
Well,
Yeah.
I loved Anything But Love.
Oh, good.
I
Yeah.
truly, truly, I look forward to it when it came on, especially we're talking about real-time TV where we had to watch commercials and you had
Yeah.
to sit
Yeah.
down and I thought the writing was excellent and I thought the chemistry between Richard and Jamie Lee was phenomenal. It really, really worked. It worked on all, fired on all cylinders, I feel.
Yeah. It was great. It was great. Peter Noah, they did 6 episodes with a different producer. I don't remember who that was. And then they brought in Peter Noah, who revamped the whole thing, and he ran it for the end. And that was my second TV job, writing job. We had done Bob Newhart, and then at the end of that season, they hired us to do Anything But Love. And the only reason they let us, we agreed to do Anything But Love, is they let Jane and me do little tiny roles. So we were writing on the writing staff, and then I played Harold, she played Kelly, office nerds. Um, 1 or 2 lines a week, nothing major. Um, but it was one of the first times they let writers also act, because back then you were either a writer or
It's
you were. It
taboo.
wasn't until The Office, really, where the actors were also writers.
Right.
But that changed the game for everybody going forward. But before that, you had to be in one camp or the other.
And you developed Suddenly Susan? You were
Yeah,
part of it?
yeah.
Were you part of the casting also for it?
Well, sort of. Um,
Was it supposed to be a Brooke Shields show?
we were hired. It's a very long story. Actually, it's in here. Read this.
Oh well, show it, please.
Here you go. This is all about all the different TV shows Jane and I wrote or created. And there's a great chapter on Suddenly Susan in here and Don Rickles. But
Awesome.
the Suddenly Susan thing was a man named Clyde Phillips had written a drama uh, that Brooke Shields read, and she said she would do. She had just done an episode of Friends where she got a lot of notice for doing that. So they wanted her to do a show. So she said she wanted to do this show called Suddenly Susan. And they read it and they said, it's not, we want you in a sitcom. This is not up to par. So they asked Clyde to rewrite it. He did. And as he said to me later on, which was very insulting, um, they asked me to turn it into a sitcom and I had to, put on my funny hat and get down in the sewer to write like you guys do. Oh,
Mm.
thank you. Well, they weren't happy. NBC wasn't happy with what he had written. So they asked Jane and me to come in and give notes. And I said, okay, but I got a ton of notes. And so I go to this meeting, and Warren Littlefield, the president of NBC, was there. But also there was about 30 other people with legal pads and pens. And it's like, what the hell? And Warren Littlefield started the meeting by saying, we want to thank Billy and Jane for coming aboard and taking over Suddenly Susan. It's like, I didn't agree to that. But I also never worked for NBC before. And the president is telling me that I'm running the show. I better. So he said, what notes do you have? And I started to give the notes. And I was like, Clyde is sitting right there. And they said, don't worry about him. He knows, this is a piece of shit. So I started to give notes, and they said, "Okay, great. Rewrite the script, and we need it by Monday because we start the table read on Monday." And it's like, well, wait a minute, who's in it? Who's in the show? So as we're walking out, literally as we're walking out, and Jane and I knew we had 3 days to write, basically create and write this show, knowing that it starred Brooke Shields as somebody named Susan, who was breaking up with her boyfriend. That's all we knew about the show. And Frank, my producer from all the other TV shows, he put my usual people together, the cameramen, all that stuff. And we wrote it over the weekend. We and we cast as we're walking out. It's like, the grandmother. How about Nancy Marchand? Sold. Elizabeth Ashley can do the sold. So we did that as we're walking out. We wrote the thing. We show up on Monday. Elizabeth Ashley walks in thinking she's playing a different role. We said, "Oh no, now you're a novel. You're a romance novelist." Oh, okay. Nancy Marchand comes in. She's the grandmother. We do the show. We film it, and it was 3 weeks. We had a time crunch because the lineup for the fall had to be
They
announced.
wanted it out. Yeah.
So we ended up putting the show together, editing it, and turning it in 3 weeks from the day I had that meeting with Warren Littlefield to the edited version, handing it to them, and they picked the show up. And then they fired Jane and me. They fired Jane and me.
Wow.
Wasn't friendly enough with Warren Littlefield. It's like, when did I have time to be friendly with him? And I think what happened is they originally had two other people in mind who said no because they were smarter than I was, and we were sort of placeholders till they were available. And they fired my entire cast of people. Had they not fired Nancy Marchand, she couldn't have done The Sopranos. So it worked out great. Um,
So Hector and Enrico and Spade came after the
also,
fact?
everybody was after me.
Oh.
He had a good cast. Maggie Wheeler from Friends, Nancy, Phil Kasnoff, who played Sinatra in the TV movie and a bunch of Broadway credits. David Krumholtz was the office nerd who was in love with Brooke, and Elizabeth Ashley, who was phenomenal. All of them were gone, and they brought in other people. And I said to the Warner Brothers people, "Why did you fire? I'm not happy that you got rid of us, but why did you fire everybody else?" And I shouldn't say this out loud, but I'm going to. They said, "Well, we brought in we brought in lesser talents so Brooke would look better,"
Mm.
which is not necessarily true.
And which isn't true either.
They were perfectly talented people.
Right.
Um, but so that was. But then years later, I get a call from. There's a lot more to it than I'm skipping over. We get a call from Steve Peterman, who had taken our job. Nice guy, friendly. We're friends with him. And he said, "Call me right away. Call me immediately." I said, "What's wrong?" And I said to Jane, Warner Brothers must be trying to screw us all because it's going into syndication. They're probably going to screw us all. Let me call him back and see what's going on. And he said, "Hi, Billy. Are you making more money than we are?" I said, "What?" He said, "We just got the audit that we all have to do to make sure the studios don't rip you off. You pay for an audit to look at the books and stuff. And there are only a certain number of us who are entitled to money from the show." And and the it's broke. The cost of the audit was broken down according to how much of the show you owned. Right? So Steve said, "Are you making more money than we are?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "I just got the audit, and you're making more money than we. How much are you making?" I said, "I'm not telling you how much I'm making." "Why?" And he said, "Because I had to do this show for 3 years before I got my money." "How long did you do it? 6 months?" I said, "No, 3 weeks." My
Because they canned you, so they had to lay it out for to you.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So
Now we're coming up. We have here the release date was June 16th, 1978. We're coming up on the 50th. And
yeah,
hopefully Universal gets their act together because Universal did nothing in Martha's Vineyard. It was all the vineyard
Really?
itself. Yeah,
Crazy.
they had nothing to do with it. Uh, None of the props, everything, all the props and all the stuff was from fans that had their own stuff itself that was in the museum. It was unbelievable how they just had nothing to they like wiped their hands from it. You froze on me. Oh, there
Yeah,
you are.
you froze too.
Oh,
I could hear you, but you were freezing.
you're
Um,
back.
wow. No, that's terrible.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully something happens. Now I know you do conventions. You go
Not many.
that's how we got to meet. We met at Chiller.
The the uh the few that I've done were excuses to get together with my my friends from the movie because we're all still very close, all of
Right.
us.
Yeah, because
Um,
Gigi and John was there, and Gary was
yeah,
supposed to be there, but Gary was on location
yeah,
at
yeah,
the time of what was going on.
yeah. The first one we did was in Hollywood, I think, and we got pretty much the whole cast. Cindy Grover flew in from Hawaii, and all of us there, and we had a great time just reminiscing. Um, and then the second one we did, Richard Dreyfuss was also there, and nobody bothered talking to us because they were all and I understand, believe me.
Right.
Uh, uh, so that was kind of fun. I'm doing my very first Star Trek convention. I was in the first movie right after Jaws 2. I was in that movie, and I've never been asked to do a Star Trek convention, so they finally asked me. So I'm going out to Vegas sometime in August. I think
I
the 9th.
I really love that. I mean, look, it's very slow paced, the
Yes,
first one,
yes,
but the set design, it's beautiful. Everything looks
yeah.
amazing. We able to steal the outfit to take home?
No, and I wish I had. On Jaws 2, I still have my cap, and
Okay.
I had the life jacket, but it ended up getting out in the garage and stuff. Throw it out. Um, but Star Trek, I never thought of stealing my costume. I wish I had because it sold for $30,000 at some auction, and some people send me pictures. I was like, oh, thanks. But no, I wish I had.
Well,
And I
Todd Rebello, whose brother was Mike in the first Jaws,
yeah.
he has the print poster of the Island Theater, the premiere of it
Oh,
in his store, right?
oh,
And he
yeah.
has it in a wooden frame. Like, no, I said, that's probably like a half. If you put it in an auction, I said minimum $250,000
Hmm.
for this. But he's like, well, he goes, well, it's people come in and they want to take a picture. I said, yeah, but put it on the glass. I mean, like, protect it a little
Yeah.
bit more than it's like he went to Michael's and got a frame and slabbed it right up on there. It's crazy.
Wow. Wow.
Did
Yeah.
you did you take any photos or anything when you were on location? Did you
Yeah.
bother? Were you that type of kid?
Back then, nobody really took a lot of pictures, but yes, there are a few. There are a few. There's one of I've never showed it to anybody either. Um, for Halloween, everybody dressed up as whatever, and I dressed up as David Brown, the producer.
Yes.
So I had a white mustache, and I had the same hat, and it was hilarious. So I have a picture of the two of us side by side.
So and
Uh,
you never took a photo of like you with the shark on the
no,
barge, nothing like
and
that. You guys never bothered.
and Dusenberry did it, and
That's a great shot.
it's a great shot, and I wish I had, and I never thought about it. I never thought about it
Even to
because they were
steal
all
one of the teeth, to take one of the teeth as a memento.
Roy Arbogast gave me an he autographed a tooth for me, so I have that. But the nobody thought of taking photos because there were photographers all over the
Everywhere. I
place.
know. I know.
Um, and yeah, and then when they sent somebody from Universal, I guess, to interview everybody for the making of our movie, but they picked a week that none of us were working. So they didn't talk to a lot of the kids. And the book is sort of, it's perfectly fine, but it's sort of skewed. And Michael Smith, when he finally wrote that book, he covered every
Oh, he
base.
laid it out. But that is the Bible
Yeah,
of the making of it. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have anything coming up now, future wise?
Well, I'm doing that Star Trek convention, and I've just written my third book, which should be out soon.
And what's that on?
It's called The Crackerjack Man. You can get it through Amazon or Barnes and Noble, those things.
Do you have your own website that you sell? Do you sell stuff on your website?
VanZantMillmore.com.
Okay. And I'll
Millmore.
put that in the my description also, so people can come over there to do that. And
Yeah,
could they buy your book through there also?
yeah, yeah,
Do you have copies at home that if anybody wants an autograph copy and stuff like
yeah.
that?
I do autograph copies through the
Right.
website. But yeah, but it's fun, and I'm assuming that in the next year or two, there'll be more of these reunions. Pointing to the wrong thing. More reunions for our 50th. Um,
That's the teaser, right? The sunset poster with the
I
fin.
think was the oh, that
The
one's
one
too small.
behind you.
I think this was the poster for the John Hancock version.
Yeah, I have the Japanese version of that.
Uh-huh.
It's all written in Japanese, but that's one of the great. That should have been promoted a lot more. That promo poster because the colors on it and everything. It's a beautiful poster.
But you can see it was much darker, and then suddenly
Yes.
the one behind you, the colors are popping because it's a
Yeah,
preview.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
And
they use
I like the one you've got with Eddie and Tina.
and that
In
was the Roger Castell shark that they used for that first version.
oh I
Yeah,
didn't know
that's
that.
that's coming up because that version on this side of it is on the album and CD cover
Right, that's right,
of the soundtrack. They
that's
used
right.
it. So it's the only time promotional wise you saw that because they never really used that promotional wise for posters or anything like that.
Yeah.
They went straight. I guess they just thought the skier, the water skier, was like that's the scene that where everybody get it because it was in the promo.
Yeah, originally in the first version, it was supposed to be two couples, and one of the couples was going to be producer Dick Zanuck skiing with his wife, I think, and that got changed too. So, yeah,
Unbelievable. Well, Billy, I took a lot of your time. I really appreciate it. It flew. I hope it flew for you.
that went fast. Yeah, that was fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And anything else you need to promote or whatever, please let me know. Or especially while we're getting towards, I'm sure you'll be doing another interview for the 50th.
I hope so.
You know, and hopefully I'll get to see you down the road. Hopefully another convention in Jersey.
Excellent. I'd love to. Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much. All
Take
right.
your
Take care.
time. Bye.
Bye.